Hello, students of the Web Analytics course at the University of Denver. We're here to answer your questions. This is Ferris and Eric. I was speaking at the UPSIA conference in Florida and met Victoria O'Malley. Hi, Victoria. I chatted after my talk about Victoria wanted to use our book that we recently published on Google Analytics, and said we would be more than happy to help and even present and answer questions that your students have. So you all had sent us some tough questions, but we're here, we're happy to answer them.
Here's University of Denver, kind of grainy shot, but looks like a beautiful campus. Not sure if you folks are located right on this specific part of the campus, but welcome.
It's probably from summertime, not a snowy winter, right? So yeah, again, this is Ferris Alhu. I'm a co-author of the Google Analytics Breakthrough book and a founder and a principal consultant at Enor. And with me, my colleague and friend Eric Fatman, co-author of the book, and he's the analytics trainer and coach at Enor. So you all sent us a bunch of questions. We put them here for those of you who haven't seen them. And we'll go each question at a time, and we'll also post this video on our blog. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to us. So we'll get started. Eric.
So just to quickly go through the questions, just as an intro, of course we will discuss each of them in some detail. Most important factors to analyze when you're approaching analytics, especially if you have limited time. Not all of us can do analytics 40 hours a week. In fact, most of us can't do analytics 40 hours a week. So what are the most important factors we want to look for the biggest leverage? We're going to talk about, there's a question about missing features in GA and GA relative to other paid vendors. We're going to address one of the questions by talking about cleaner acquisition data with using campaign parameters. We'll talk about helping Google Analytics provide the best data about where our traffic is coming from. We'll talk about conversion credit for multiple domains or multiple actions, a good question that came in about basically when someone does something on one site or a microsite, how should I give credit for that when the conversion takes place on my main site, maybe even in a later session. We'll talk about complementary tools, another good question. They're all good questions. Ferris will talk a little bit about dark social. That was a specific question about one issue. Then we'll look a little bit at the future of Google Analytics tracking and potentially our future as marketers and analysts and media people. How do we stay ahead of the game? And then we'll wrap everything up with a few key takeaways, because we'll see that there are a few recurring themes that emerge in these 8 questions. So we'll sum those up in the key takeaways. But let's get started with the first question. So we won't read through the whole question, but the thrust of this question was, what are the most important factors to analyze in Google Analytics, whatever analytics tool you're using, but we're focusing specifically on Google Analytics in this discussion. So what are the most important things to analyze? Well, it goes back to, most of analytics goes back to a few things. First of all, you want to make sure that you understand what your success factors are. It's really important when you're doing analytics to really always step back and say, what does success look like to me? And it's hard even for people who do analytics a lot, and even people who are professionals in the field whose primary responsibility is analytics. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in some of the other noise, if we want to say that, and to lose sight of what our success factors are, and to make sure that we base all of our analysis around our success factors. Want to make sure that we understand where our traffic is coming from. We'll talk a little bit more in another question about providing Google Analytics the help that it needs to clean up the acquisition data and we want to demonstrate the value of digital marketing by showing which traffic channels are leading to our goals. And just so we are looking at some data, going to go into, sorry, had Google Analytics pulled up, but we had to do a little bit of a reboot, so we're going to go into Google Analytics here. Let me go ahead and sign in. And what we're going to be looking at is the Google Analytics demo account, which we can all get access to. It's the Google Merchandise Store account. So this is the actual Google Analytics data for the Google Merchandise Store account. It's very useful. A lot of good enhanced e-commerce data, a lot of good data across the board for Google Analytics that we can refer to. So for when we're talking about our success factors, just quickly, we're talking about the conversion report, so either e-commerce transactions or goal completion. So in the case of the merchandise store, if we go to the goal overview report and we look at purchase completed as one goal, so this has been defined as a success factor. This is what the merchandise store folks really want people to do. So this has been mapped as a goal in Google Analytics. And then if we bring that back to acquisition, we go into our, let's say, source medium report, we could see which traffic sources are helping to drive the conversions. In a later question, we're also going to look at which traffic sources are helping conversions, not when the conversions take place in that session, but even conversions that take place in later sessions. But to get the most value out of Google Analytics most quickly, focus on your success factors, focus on where your traffic is coming from, and we're going to, in another question, we're going to make sure that we do track our acquisition data more cleanly. We're going to give Google Analytics the help that it needs for that. So that is for question 1. Ferris, you want to take question 2?
Sure. And Eric, I think there might be an issue with the voice quality. You might want to maybe on the next question turn off the video because I think the voice is coming across choppy.
Okay.
Yeah, we can try it that way. So yeah, the second question is about Google Analytics as a tool. Let me just go to the question here, just one second. So, GA seems to be a very comprehensive web analytics tool. Can you identify features that are missing from GA? Why would a company choose a paid vendor over GA? Actually, that's believe it or not, that's a common question. So I'll give you a quick background. We've been in this business since it started. So Google Analytics was introduced to the masses back in 2005 as a free tool. At that time, you'd have to pay for, if you want to get a web analytics tool, Web Trends or others at that time, you'd have to pay for it. So Google is a unique company and they do things in a unique way. So they made that very powerful tool, made it free for everybody. And then the tool evolved, and in 2011, actually Google introduced a paid version of the platform called Google Analytics Premium, now rebranded as Google Analytics 360. So there is a paid version of Google Analytics free where you actually have more capabilities, more integrations, just more power in general. So I think I would always, in terms of consulting, I look at your requirements. So when you're looking at tools, GA, Google Analytics is a very powerful tool. We're one of the leading certified partners on the platform, work very closely with Google, and we work with some very complex implementations, global brands, and they're all using Google Analytics 360, the paid version. So you can do a lot with that platform, but if you have a small nonprofit or you have a global brand, at the end of the day, look at your requirements. What is it that you need to do? Where are you spending your time and money and effort? And then choose a technology that's going to help you get there. But in terms of features, if you look at 5 years ago, maybe there were some differentiators between the paid tools and GA. Today and over the last few years, the paid version of Google Analytics is very powerful. It has a lot of maybe things you cannot see within the user interface, but in terms of integrations, so you can integrate with a lot of the solutions in the Google ecosystem, like DoubleClick. So if you buy media using DoubleClick, there's a native integration. If you want to use programmatic real-time bidding, there's an integration there. If you're a publisher and you sell, you sell ads on your site, you can integrate with DoubleClick for publishers. So there's a lot of these integration. If you're into big data and you want to integrate your web analytics and mobile analytics data with other data sources, there's a native integration with the Google Cloud Platform, with Google BigQuery. So all these integrations are very powerful. They complement what you can do with sort of, or they're additional features that you won't see in Google Analytics free. Now, if you are comparing Google Analytics to, to Adobe Analytics or to Mixpanel or to some other tools, yes, there might be, for example, you might be able to do funnels in a different way in Mixpanel, and everything is sort of set up. You can do push notification for, on a mobile device. So you can do those sort of things in a certain tool, and you might not be able to do it in another tool. The UI, the user friendliness of Google Analytics, I think, is far superior than many other tools. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at requirements. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing a sort of a laundry list of all the features that GA has versus the Adobe platform versus some other platforms. I would start with your requirements. What is it that you need to do? And potentially you can get someone who is seasoned in this this space, or hire a consultant to help you put those requirements together. But I would start with the requirements and then go into the vendor selection process, the technology selection process. Yeah. Eric, back to the next question. So in terms of working, another question is about, not everybody's working with global brands. I have this question, a nonprofit theater company, they're very focused on traditional marketing, maybe print, maybe radio, TV, not maybe very tech savvy. Somehow people associate digital marketing with technology. There's a technical part to digital marketing, but it's marketing still. So what kind of data, can I use if you're the practitioner, if you're there, you want to convince your management to invest in analytics and digital marketing? What can I use to convince management of the importance of digital and how to keep it? So did you want to answer that, Eric, or do you want to
sure.
about it?
Thanks, Ferris. So you want to. This kind of goes back to the first question. This also goes back to what Ferris was just saying about really focusing on business requirements. I mean, you want to focus on what is important for you, and you do want to demonstrate success. I mean, the onus is on us to demonstrate success. I mean, I think if you listen to like Avinash Kaushik, he says, don't be a faith-based organization, meaning make your decisions based on data. So if we are advocating a marketing channel, then it really is up to us to demonstrate that marketing channel is working. And we can do that, again, by making sure that we have our conversion points mapped out, whether that is through goal tracking or e-commerce tracking, making sure that our acquisition data is as clean as possible through the use of campaign parameters. And once you do that, you could, again, if we go back to the demo account, you could begin to demonstrate which channels, which of your efforts, your digital efforts, whether it's AdWords traffic, or whether it's paid social or email campaigns or display campaigns or any of the other types of paid digital channels that you can promote through, you can start to demonstrate the success through those channels. And also, there's an opportunity to measure print better as well, because you could potentially provide a redirected URL that has campaign parameters that gets recorded as its own campaign within Google Analytics. So we could potentially have an offline campaign that would appear in the all campaigns reports. So not only would you be able to demonstrate the new channels, how the new channels are, or the new digital channels, how those are performing, but you'd be able to get some data on the offline channels as well. Same thing with coupon codes. If you're offering a coupon code and you have e-commerce tracking in place, you can go into e-commerce marketing and you could look at, for instance, product coupon. I don't think this is super populated here. No, we don't have any data in the demo account for this date range, but if we did have, let's say, actually that's product coupon, maybe it's an order coupon. I think we may have a little bit for, yeah, so for order coupon, this data is a little bit funky, but we would be able to see specific coupon codes that have been entered. So marrying offline with online and just being able to demonstrate success, whether it's a digital channel or an offline channel. And Ferris, you want to talk about Ticketmaster a little bit?
Yeah, so in terms of, I mean, in that same space, I mean, if you think again, if you're presenting this to your management, I think telling a story is always a good idea in convincing people, not just have some slides. And also, I think showing what others in your industry are leveraging those tools and those platforms or those initiatives. And, if you just Ticketmaster as an example, without obviously going into any details of the work we're doing for them, but they're very successful. You look at their different properties, Live Nation or Ticketmaster.com. I mean, it's a huge investment in digital in terms of the tools that, for you as a consumer, for you and I, we go in and we can, do all, search for the event that we're interested in and be able to see these different seatings and all of that, and you look at all the marketing they do on online. So again, I think bringing examples from you within your industry and bringing examples, I would say, from your competitors, and that might help you convince your management to invest in this area. I mean, it's sort of, I mean, we're not going back to, I'm not saying print, radio, TV, print, that's going away. But if you're not investing in digital, that's pretty serious. I mean, I know it's tough. I know sometimes it's tough to convince folks who are just new to digital. It's kind of hard to believe that in 2017 people are still new to digital. But I think you have, as you want to convince someone, find these, use these approaches I described earlier, competition, competitors in your space. And maybe start with something small initiative with very little budget, maybe, and maybe a lot of work, and show some results. Share that with your management, and they're likely to help you get more budget and more resources.
And we also have the reference to Google Trends, so that's a good tool to be aware of. You could always go to google.com. Trends, and you could just get an idea of search volume for whatever term it is. So if you're looking, I mean, theater tickets is going to be pretty broad, but if you wanted to see searches for theater tickets, so this is indicating that people are searching for theater tickets, and you could compare different terms, and you could demonstrate that the audience that you're seeking is behaving in a digital way, so you have to try to attract them in a digital way as well. So Google Trends is a good tool to have in your portfolio.
Great, thanks.
Okay, and we mentioned about clean acquisition data and goal tracking. We're not going to be able to get into campaign tracking. We have resources for that on the eNOR blog, but the campaign parameters will help you clean up your acquisition data and make your reporting better on many levels and for many purposes. Okay, so
you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So question 4 was a good question about a scenario involving microsites leading to a main site and activities that occurred on a microsite that could influence conversions that are taking place maybe at a later time on the main site, such as watching a video or viewing an infographic. And this really gets to the heart of really one of the main questions in Google Analytics. In analytics in general, in marketing analytics and behavioral analytics, when someone does something, how could we relate that to something else? And there are a few ways that we can approach that. There's a few ways that we can approach that more user scope focus of not just focusing on the session, not just focusing on what happens at one time, but really focus more on the user journey. That could mean a lot of things. We could look at it as piecing together different actions that lead potentially to an outcome that we want. So one thing that we want to be aware of, and we're just going to jump ahead just a little bit. We don't have too many like training slides in here, but here's a training slide. So for cross-domain tracking, if you are dealing with multiple domains, you do need to make sure to make the modifications in the tracking code so that you do maintain the session across multiple domains and you don't restart the session. That will be key for tracking a flow from one domain to another and tracking an activity that happens on one domain to an outcome that happens on another. So just a technical note, you have to make sure that cross-domain tracking is in place. We also want to let's take a quick look at multi-channel funnels, and we'll take a really quick look at segments, and we'll talk also just very quickly about BigQuery. Multi-channel funnels, if we go back to Google Analytics, these are the reports that give us, let's actually bump up the text just a little bit. These are the reports that tell us not just which channels conversions occurred on during the final session, but also which channels assisted in conversion. So this is getting towards a more user journey, user scope analysis, and not just looking at what happened during one session. Because if you pay $15 for an AdWords click-through and then someone comes back through a Google organic search because of the brand awareness, you want to make sure that AdWords, that the paid search, gets at least some credit for that initial click-through and the conversion that resulted in during a later session. So this is one aspect of user centricity. Another aspect of user centricity is using what we refer to as behavioral segments. So if we say, okay, someone watched a video, someone downloaded an infographic, how did that influence conversions? Well, let's look at an example in the Google Merchandise Store. So if we go into the All Pages report, we could see that there is frequently, that should be good. So we have the frequently asked questions page. We have the FAQ page. Are people converting at a higher rate when people, after viewing the FAQ page or after watching a video or after downloading an infographic? Any of those types of interactions, you could create a segment based on any of those interactions and see if it affects conversion rate. So very quickly, if we create a segment and we actually haven't done this yet, so it's going to be interesting to see if people who view the FAQ page actually do convert at a higher rate. So let's go new segment, FAQ viewed, and we'll go right down to conditions, and we'll go to page. Page contains frequently asked questions. That's good. We'll go ahead and, so it's only a small number of users, 1.40% of users. Let's go ahead and save that. And actually, let's go back to it for a second because there's one thing we forgot to look at. Let's go in and edit it. We could actually change the scope from sessions to user scope. So now this will span multiple sessions. Let's go ahead and save now. So we have our FAQ viewed page. We have our all users page. So this is everyone. Go ahead and apply this. And if we go down to, now if we go down to the e-commerce reports, let's see if people who view the FAQ page, if they're actually converting at a higher rate. So we'll go to e-commerce overview. And let's check out. So you see for FAQ viewed, 6.57% conversion rate versus 2.82%. Who are the people who are most likely to convert, maybe also the most likely to view the FAQ page? Yes, but as an analyst, is this a relevant piece of information? It would be relevant for me, and maybe it would suggest that you need to make your FAQ page more prominent. If you see this for a video, we could create a similar segment for a video. You post a video, are people converting at a higher rate after the video? Well, you create a segment based on the video. If I saw this for a video, I would want to make sure that that video was more prominent so more people could see it. So this goes back also to some user centricity and tying actions to outcomes even across different sessions, even across different domains. And for just as another note, we could talk a lot about BigQuery, especially our colleague Hazem could especially talk a lot about BigQuery. But when you export data from Google Analytics, you can do a lot in terms of multi-session analysis, sometimes in ways that's hard to do within the Google Analytics interface. So if we really want to do some high-power multi-session analysis, export the data to BigQuery, and then you could do querying across other sessions, and of course bring in other data like CRM data. So if we're looking at multi-sessions also tied in with lifetime value, that's the type of thing that you would perform in BigQuery rather than in the Google Analytics user interface. So we also want to consider Web Analytics as its own entity, but we also want to look at it as a data source that we are integrating with other data sources for additional analysis.
Right, and that's, I'll just add something here, Eric, and especially for students, career-wise, things are evolving. It used to be web analytics, and then it's web analytics and mobile analytics, and now in almost every engagement we have with a client of ours, you see the marketing team. There's a bit of an overlap between maybe marketing and business intelligence, so BI. So and you hear data engineering, data science. So I think as you get more familiar with this space, as you learn more about web analytics, you might end up specializing in, especially if you have a background in statistics and all, it's just if you maybe want to get more into that part of it, the data engineering, the sort of predictive analytics, the data science piece. There's a huge, I think, opportunity there. If you're maybe less technical and you love this stuff, still, then you can do a lot in web and mobile analytics, and we'll talk about this more later in the slides. I'm ahead of myself here, but it is important to note that this is all sort of overlapping now. Is not as siloed as it used to be.
Thanks, Ferris. Okay. Question 5, what other tools can we use to complement our Google Analytics, Web Analytics data?
Yeah, want me to take this one on?
Sure.
Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. We always, there's always questions about technology and vendors and tools. So there, you mentioned PPC vendors. So for those of us who are not familiar with PPC, this is paid search, pay per click, sort of a, it's if you run, you see all these ads on Google. They used to be on the top and on the right-hand side. Now they're nearly on top. So all those ads, those pay-per-click, that's paid search. It's called search marketing, different names. Basically, there are a lot of tools that enable you to manage your campaigns at scale. But besides those paid search vendors and social media, we have here listed something, qualitative. So there are a lot of, when we think of analytics, it's data, different data sources, different tools, different platforms. They all complement each other to give us better signal, or to give us more signals, so we can then kind of connect all the puzzles and have a better understanding of the user journey, of the user experience. So we have, when we say quantitative, we talk about numbers, metrics, like number of visits, number of visitors, visitors by city, visitors by country, those sort of things, right? But there are also other tools aside from the quantitative, or when we're talking about quantitative also in social, number of followers, number of tweets, number of shares, that's all quantitative. There's a whole another set of tools in the qualitative area, and you can think of when you go on sites or apps, you see surveys. How was your experience? What were you looking for? Did you find what you're looking for? Are you a customer? What's your gender? We know the bunch of questions you get asked, and this is where the site owner is. They're wanting to understand more about who's visiting the site to improve them. To improve the experience. They're not typically asking, they shouldn't be asking for any personally identifying information, PII. So don't give anyone your email or any other information like your credit card information or social security number unless you know it's a trusted source and maybe you're buying something. But survey data allows the site owner to know more and answer the why question. Why are people leaving? It's really hard to answer the why question with this quantitative data. We also have, when we say survey on an app or on a site if you're visiting a brand. But also you can do consumer research, market research. If you want to understand, let's say you're building a product to compete with, I don't know, a company compete with Uber or Lyft. So you might want to ask people on specific site, about transportation, travel site, ask specific questions. So you can actually use a number of technologies, including one by Google called Google Surveys, where you can easily go and set up some questions, and obviously a lot of thought should go into these questions and what you want to get out of it. That's an area of specialization as well within analytics. But you can easily actually launch a survey and quickly get that data about the consumers. You can also do in-person usability testing, or someone is watching you behind the screen. And there are other tools where you can actually, and they're not very expensive, where you can ask experts to actually critique a specific flow on your site. Let's say a shopping cart flow from adding to cart all the way to buying, or maybe a form you have, maybe signing up for an online course, or maybe submitting a lead, or just a user experience, a search experience on your app or site. So there are a bunch of tools out there, again, not very expensive, where you can get data very easily. So the thing is, there's a lot of tools at your disposal. I would recommend you take a look at the various initiatives you're running. So there's not enough time in the day to do all these tools, to run all these experiments. You need a lot of resources. So focus on what what's really important to the business, the initiatives that are a priority, let's say for this quarter, and use some of these tools to help you get better signals so you can improve these programs. And then you increase these programs, you impact the business, more profit, you get more budget, you hire more people, you do more things, but do it in a gradual fashion. Anything you'd like to add, Eric, on this?
Yeah, just to emphasize what Ferris is saying about marrying qualitative and quantitative data. Analytics isn't going to really tell you what's missing. It's not always going to directly tell you what's wrong. So sometimes you can get qualitative data, but as Ferris was saying, well, like what's the why behind it? Sometimes one conversation with one customer or even people within your own organization, you don't want to neglect that resource, because a lot of times folks within your own organization can give you very valuable feedback, but they've never just walked through your digital processes. No one's ever asked them to really look critically, even though they understand what the company is supposed to be, the company or organization, what they're supposed to be offering, how things are really supposed to work, how you're supposed to really be satisfying customers. If you have a customer care team, they're a wealth of insight into what may or may not be satisfying your end users in a digital experience, because they're the ones speaking with them, so they know what they want. So make sure that you, whenever there is a quantitative analysis, make sure that you pull in some qualitative data as well. And also, kind of somewhere in between qualitative and quantitative are getting back to the question of what additional tools can you use. In many cases, it's a good idea to supplement Google Analytics with a heat mapping tool. There's a little bit of overlay reporting in Google Analytics, but it's not really an overlay reporting format tool. If you get a third-party tool such as Hotjar or Mouseflow or Crazy Egg or SessionCam, there are a number of them out there. They all do comparable things. Just to take a quick look, in case you haven't seen any of the overlay reports. So this is actually for the pre-designed Enor site. So this is actually our own. Let's look at the training curriculum page. So this is based on 2,000 sessions. So this is a mapping of the quantitative data. So we could see where people are clicking. We could see, for instance, that people are clicking on pricing, which we would be able to see in Google Analytics. What we might not see is, well, people are trying to click on these descriptions, these course descriptions, more than we would have anticipated. Google Analytics is not going to tell you what people are clicking on if it's not tracked. So tools such as a heat mapping tool will provide reports such as this. Also, there's where is our scroll depth report, which is always good, just to get
Who's that good-looking guy? Is somebody clicking on that picture with that good-looking trainer there?
I hope so. With that nice tie, he got dressed up for everyone. So we could see how far down people are scrolling on the page, the percentages. So this is a good complement. We also, in all of our Google Analytics implementations, we implement scroll tracking as well, so we could see quantitative scroll tracking. But this is another representation, good for your own analysis, and also when you're presenting to other people in your organization or to clients. So just as a supplement to your analytics, this is somewhere between, I guess it's quantitative, but it's somewhere in between kind of that quantitative, qualitative zone.
Right. And people love visuals, so yeah.
People love visuals.
Back to the question. Yeah, back to the question on the theater question. So you can get like Crazy Egg or a Hotjar. They're not expensive tools. You can get them deployed on maybe just your homepage and then let it run for a couple of weeks, and then you have some data. So that might be one one good visual thing to use to get you more budget, to get you more resources. All right, on to the next.
Okay.
So there's a question about dark social. This is something that we hear about. This question is about this one organization where they extensively use social media, and we want to track it properly in GA, but there's this thing called dark social. So what do we do about it? So there are a lot of good articles out there about it. I'll maybe reference a couple of them at the end. But basically, this is something that was coined by an editor at The Atlantic, Alexis Madrigal, I believe the name, a while ago. I think back in 2012, where the traffic that you'd anticipate from social media, from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, what have you, is not showing actually in your reports as social traffic. So that's, obviously that's problematic. Because in marketing, you want to be able to measure the response of your campaigns, of your initiatives. So if I'm spending a lot of money on email or paid search or social media, I'm blogging, I'm writing content, I'm sharing, videos and whatnot. I want to see, traffic coming back to my properties, to my apps, to my site. So if I can't track it, then maybe I get to the wrong conclusions that this is not effective. I should stop spending money on social media, and that could be detrimental to my marketing efforts. So dark social is, again, this traffic that cannot be measured properly in your web analytics program. So it's not an issue of Google Analytics or Adobe or the platforms themselves. It's just how the web, how the internet, digital works. So an example, if you look at what Eric shows here, like this URL, one of our blog posts. So someone might share this on social media. Somebody might actually copy it and paste it in a chat box. Somebody might send it in an email. So let's say if you use Outlook on desktop, and you click on it. So all that sharing that's taking place in native apps, sometimes in some of the Facebook apps, when you click on a link, it doesn't take you to the side. It brings it up in its own frame. So a lot of that traffic that's hitting your site from either sort of a natural social way, when I click this and put it in my chat box and share it with Eric, or within like a native app, or maybe I send it an email. A lot of that sharing is not going to show up in Google Analytics as something that came from social media or from a social sharing. It's just going to show as direct traffic. And the really interesting thing is, if you look at your traffic channels, the one report that Eric was showing, and you enhance that report by adding another dimension, adding, let's say, landing pages. So if you look at your direct traffic and you look at landing pages, you see all these long URLs. And if you just look at it without any context, you might come to the conclusion that, yeah, people are actually typing those URLs, or maybe they have them bookmarked, and they're coming to your site, and then it's inflating that sort of direct traffic report. And that could be very misleading, because it's very, very, very unlikely that someone is going to sit down and type that long URL. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your social media traffic, and Eric might be bringing up some of this. It is, yeah, someone might have bookmarked this and they're coming to you, but there is one quick way is to look at these URLs, that are long URLs, in your direct channel, and you can create a bucket or a channel grouping, or you can set up some reports where you can see, at least in terms of the volume of traffic that's coming with all these long URLs. You have to maybe do some regular expressions or do some filters, but you can do it where you can get at least maybe 20-30% of your direct traffic. It could be, I've seen some stats where 70% is coming from these long URLs that are most likely coming from some sort of social sharing. So that's one thing that you can do if you just have raw data there that's not tagged properly. Another thing, and we won't have the time to cover it today, but we'll put a reference on it on the blog post, is to properly tag your campaign. So if you are, you don't have control over what people share on social media. They can just grab that. They read the blog post on our blog, they loved it, and they just shared it on Facebook. That's fine. But if you are running a paid social campaign, if you're running ads on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you have control over that URL. So you can add parameters, those UTM _source _medium campaign. Those UTMs, those are sort of adding color to your URL. So Google Analytics would know that this visit came from, say, LinkedIn for your winter campaign for maybe your existing users. So there are different things you can do. Again, we won't have time to cover today, but if you search for, if you go to, we have actually a product called Campaignalyzer that helps users tag their campaigns properly. So there's something you can do proactively in making sure that you tag any URL that you control, any URL that you can control before you share, that should be tagged. You can also use actually bit.ly or any other URL shortener to make the whole long URL more, I guess, user-friendly, and people can then share it more easily. And that URL shortener would maintain the UTM tags, so your campaign tagging will stay intact. So those are some ideas. Again, always tag your campaigns and your URLs. Use it as shortener. And then if you just have raw data in your when I say raw, I mean tags URLs that are not tagged. In your direct reports, when you look at your direct channels and you add the landing page as a segment, or you create a segment for your direct traffic and look at the landing pages, if you see a lot of long URLs, you can group them and just get a sense of the impact of social on your traffic. So those are some ideas that, it gets more technical, if you move from HTTPS to non-secure site, also some of the parameters are dropped. The referral information is dropped, so it'll show as direct traffic. There are a couple of posts. I think there's one on bit.ly, there's one on Simply Measured. We have a post on losing referral traffic when you get a visit from an HTTPS to an HTTP, from a secure to non-secure. So we can include those links in the blog post. But there's some things that I think, quick things you can do to summarize. Sorry for taking long on this one, but tag your URLs, and then also when you look at your landing pages from a direct source, you can group all these long URLs to get a sense of the percentage of traffic that's coming from social. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Ferris, and we will make sure to include the links that Ferris mentioned in the follow-up. Okay.
All right.
Question 7. What will one track in Google Analytics in the future? We're gonna leave this one to Ferris.
So a few years ago, I think 2012 no 2013, I forgot, but a few years ago, Google actually rebranded the actual product when you go to get the code from the Google Analytics site, from Google Analytics to Universal Analytics. So I think that's an indicator of sort of where things are headed. And I think the one thing to keep in mind in terms of the future, user centricity. We used to have one device, the desktop, right? And maybe go to a site, maybe through an email that we get, or maybe through just search. Now, as users, savvy or non-savvy, we use the phone, we use desktop, we use a tablet, we use other type devices, digital devices. So it is a challenge for the marketer to track the behavior of a buyer through all these devices and through all these channels. I mean, that's one of the toughest thing for marketers to solve for analysts. So that's, and probably will be, this challenge will be with us for a number of years. But that's really, from a long-term perspective, is it's not just somebody saw an ad, they picked up the phone and called, or they clicked on an ad on Google and went and bought. It's a bit more complex. So think of the user, in mind, and their journey throughout the buying cycle. I think that's and coming up with a measurement framework around that journey. I think it's really important. So so that covers user, cross-device, cross-channel. You hear these buzzwords in the industry. I think that's something to keep in mind. Another thing is, as I mentioned, universal analytics. So Google Analytics, you can not only you can measure websites, you can measure web apps, and there's also when this was introduced, universal analytics, a bunch of us geeks, wrote blog posts about things you can do with web analytics. If you have a sensor, every time once someone goes and goes to the restroom, I saw a blog post where they're actually tracking how many times people were going to the restroom in their office. That was just to show off, what they can do. But you can measure any digital device, a set-top box. We've done some projects for mobile video streaming providers where they, if you have like a Chromecast or different devices where it's not a website, it's not a mobile app. Anything that is digital, you can actually send hits to Google Analytics with, you'd use the measurement framework.
Right,
so
including
I think measurement,
including like a CRM. So if you want to,
exactly.
If there's an offline conversion, you could code your CRM to push a hit to create a session in Google Analytics, and then if you pass the client ID, you'll be able to look at the multi-channel funnel reports and see an offline conversion that was attributed, that you could attribute to other channels. We'll probably be talking about that more in our web analytics breakthrough webinar series when our friend Matt Stannard appears. So we'll probably have a lot of things to talk about in that regard, but and also from another example, for universal analytics, if you have a kiosk or any type of programmatic environment that you want to track interactions from into Google Analytics, you can do that. You can just send through HTTP requests. You could hit the Google Analytics servers, and you pass your own hits into GA. It's probably the most universal part of universal, I think.
Right. And so you mentioned offline. I mean, also like some of the new things you hear about today, like virtual reality, right? So I mean, the shopping experience could start there. So measuring that, you hear about, if you go to the next couple of bullets there, Eric, bots. So if you're on the Facebook Messenger and you're talking about Uber, you might see something like a link to the Uber app, or maybe order a pizza with Papa John's or what have you. So how do how do we measure all this stuff? So I think that's just the nature of the beast. We had, way back then, we have home shopping network, people calling and seeing an ad on TV, and you have to make a purchase in the next 5 minutes, and how do we measure response? And so I think smart people are always in demand, and so the technology will evolve. The way we interact with brands will evolve beyond just mobile and app and virtual reality is an example. Bots is another example. But I think that the concept, one of my colleagues here, John Henson, our solutions architect, he says analytics is all rows and columns at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, understanding the business, I think, and what's important to the business, and then finding ways to measure those interactions between the consumer and your brand is really important. Some of it is easier than others, but at the end of the day, this is evolving. So I can tell you, if you asked me 5 years ago, did I think that we're gonna have the things we do today, where you can use DoorDash to order, food and Uber and Lyft, and just people. These things are evolving, but but we, I think, as marketers, as analysts, we find ways to measure and use the technology, you know, to our advantage. I was referring to DoorDash because actually we just, because I'm hungry, we just ordered lunch here in the office. It's an amazing service here we have in Silicon Valley. Hope you guys have it in your area.
Yeah, I can't
And
wait till
I have no interest in, I don't have any stocks in DoorDash, right? Just, it's a cool service, I think.
yeah. Can't wait to visit the office in Santa Clara again for
Of course.
good, freshly delivered lunches, among other things, of course. Okay, let's move on. Question 8. Okay,
You want to take that one?
we're ending, so we're concluding with this pointed question. What do students, and we're all students of new media, marketing, analytics, what do we do to stay ahead of the game?
Do you want me to take this on?
Sure, please.
I mean, you gotta take action. There's a lot of technology. We talked about technology. We talked about, you know, tools and things you can do. But at the end of the day, I think for you know, you really have to take action. You have to be able to you know, improve the business, have a business impact. At the end of the day, if you want to get a promotion, you got to learn this stuff and go and show progress. And I think most companies, and I think, again, you know, you as students, as you know, looking to get into this field, there's a shortage, and we're hiring. There's shortage in these skill sets because a lot of companies invest in technology, but it should be, at least from our perspective, we say 10% technology, 20% process, 7% people, and you see this flip-flop. You see a lot of companies invest heavily in technology and very little in hiring people to take, you know, to leverage the technology. So I think from a mindset perspective, you do need the technology, but I think you have to be in there to show how you can impact the business, how to improve an email campaign, how to improve the user experience, how to improve the conversion rate, how to listen to the surveys we talked about and take an action on those, on the customer feedback. So that really is on you, not on the technology. And the other thing that you know, we're not doing this just to produce reports. We're not here to just produce some fancy charts. If you spend the whole day doing an amazing chart and you send it to your manager and you don't have some context, you're not answering a business question, you're not providing insights and recommendations, it's not going to look good. So yes, you have to produce the reports, you have to produce nice looking charts and aesthetically pleasing, all that, but again, how do I make use of this data? How do I impact the business? Keep that in mind. And then the other aspect here is in terms of, you know, like, where do I start? What do I specialize in? I mean, we listed a number of areas, I think, depending on your background, on your interest, your passion, you might want to go into any of these. And initially you might be more of a generalist, but as you get more years and, you know, of experience, you can get more technical if you're comfortable with SQL type work and you know, DevOps and so big data engineering. If you're in JavaScript, that's obviously mobile, you know, web and mobile analytics. You know, if you're good with numbers and with Excel and you know, being an analyst is a good thing. There's, again, shortage in all of these areas. If you like sort of your visual, you like to create, you know, visuals, a lot of tools out there. Excel, the most basic, very powerful still. Domo, Click, Tableau. Again, if you're not very technical, but you love this space and you're very process oriented and you produce great documentation, I think there's a huge need in that space as well. And project management, these web analytics project could take, you know, ongoing. It's not just really project, it's a business process. So, and in all of these areas, I think there's a lot of need and there's a lot of opportunity.
Thanks,
So
Barry.
hope that's helping. Again, we're hiring. So eno.com/careers. Check it out. We have a lot of virtual people, team members all over. So let us know if you're interested.
Okay, you heard it from Ferris. So if you've made it this far in the webinar, you almost deserve a job for that. So make sure to contact us. To summarize the themes, I think we saw that some themes emerged in the questions that we went back to repeatedly. Make sure to focus on success. Focus on your key performance indicators. If Ferris was talking about the many facets that a career in this area could take, it all comes down to driving success. So play whatever role you need to in driving and demonstrating success. It doesn't have to be a big success to begin with, but if you can focus on what's important to you and drive even a little bit of an improvement and demonstrate that, that's an extraordinarily powerful thing for yourself, for your organization, for getting additional momentum, for additional resources to be allocated towards analytics and optimization. Make sure that you're focusing on success. On more of a nuts and bolts level, make sure that you clean up your acquisition data with campaign parameters. We talked about campaign parameters quite a bit. If you attend our training, if you attend our online training or in-person training, you'll hear a lot about campaign tracking, a lot more about campaign tracking from me. It's an important topic, but in order to really do analytics correctly, you have to really know cleanly where your traffic is coming from. So just at a tactical level, make sure you get control of your campaign tracking. Make sure that you, as much as you can, adopt the user focus. So you can. Whoa. Ferris, are we still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, not sure what happened to. Okay.
I can still hear you.
Okay. Well, we'll just finish. We'll just finish the key takeaways. Not sure what happened to the presentation, but make sure that you adopt a user focus as much as possible. So there's some basic things that you could do today, like if you have a logged in user experience, make sure that you are implementing cross-device tracking. It's a relatively straightforward thing to do in Google Analytics. Make sure that you're taking advantage of combinations between analytics and marketing, such as retargeting, where you could define an audience based on a user who got almost the far way. Are you sharing that now, Ferris?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So you can create a remarketing audience based on users who got to the fourth step in a conversion process but didn't convert. So there's that aspect of user centricity as well. And again, make sure that your marketing channels are clean so you can understand really where your users are coming from in one session or across multiple sessions. And the last point, so Ferris?
Yes, and I'm just, I guess,
Okay.
we're a bit challenged with with the presentation.
Yeah, I could also bring it up on this end.
No, the qualitative user experience. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so for the qualitative user experience, is that the one you want to? Sorry, I was just changing my.
Yeah, so the qualitative user experience, just make sure that you don't limit.
Yeah.
And analytics optimization is not synonymous with with analytics. Analytics is a big part of optimization, but it's not the only part of optimization. So make sure that you bring in some of the qualitative inputs in terms of surveys, in terms of usability testing, in terms of speaking with customers, in terms of speaking with other people in your organization, and also additional tools that are somewhere between qualitative and quantitative, like heat mapping. Make sure you bring those into your optimization practice as well, and don't limit yourself just to the quantitative data that the analytics tool provides. Obviously very important, but not the only part of optimization. Anything else, Ferris, that you'd like to add here for the key takeaways?
No, this is a good summary. Again, hope you've been hanging around with us that long. Hopefully we answered all your questions. Just a couple of quick things. If you're interested in the book that we recently published, it's www.gabreakthrough.com.
Yeah, Ferris, if you go to the next slide, we have the book info.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, I have it on the screen. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sharing or not. I think I'm sharing.
Oh yeah, it's good. Sorry.
Yeah,
we're good.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. We appreciate Victoria. Thank you so much for sharing that question with us. Hopefully you'll find this information useful. Again, for the students, reach out to us. We'll put this blog post up on our blog in the next couple of days. And good luck in this amazing area and in your career, this amazing area of work. Pretty good stuff. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.